What are the common responses that you tend to hear from people when they first hear about the fundraising requirement with GoCorps?
I think the initial response from most people is, I'm kind of nervous, that makes me a little hesitant, and I haven't done anything like that before. So I can't really picture what that looks like. And so something that is really helpful is just to begin understanding, what do we mean when we say fundraising, when we talk about support raising, bringing that from a really ambiguous concept down to a more understandable series of practical steps.
Yeah, I was thinking, I think a response I've heard a lot too is this idea, I've never done that before. Like, I don't even know where to begin when it comes to support raising, or, how do I start and what does that journey look like? And I think that's something that hopefully today you'll hear from us, is we want to be a part of that journey. So I think that's the first thing I often hear is like, I just don't even know how to begin. And then something I was thinking about the other day was, I feel like as I'm talking and walking with students through the process, it feels like, wow, this would be so amazing, but support raising. Like, it feels like there's this would be amazing, so cool, but I have this thing I have to tackle first, and it feels almost like a mountain. And so I think often it feels like there's this really big hurdle you have to get in order to say yes to what you're doing.
I know, like, for me, in my own personal experience, I'm just gonna be honest, it was like a huge negative thing for me. Like, I thought about the role with GoCorps and I said, this is literally my dream job, except fundraising. And it really almost kept me from doing it. Like, it was something where it almost was that last thing that would cause me to turn the other way. But I remember just really processing with the Lord about that and coming to a realization like, okay, if the only thing that's keeping me is this fear, for me, it was this fear of fundraising, this fear of money. I realized I don't want that to be the #1 factor in my decision, because I don't want that to set a precedent like for the rest of my life. I was thinking about doing GoCorps right after graduation. It was one of my first jobs after college. So I really kind of had to come to terms with realizing like, okay, I want to like be able to take a stand now and for the rest of my life to say, Lord, I'm going to trust you more than this fear of fundraising. And it was really transformational for me. But I guess I would also just say, like, if you feel that way too, like, you are not alone. Like, I 100% almost walked away.
Yep.
And I'm really glad that I didn't. It was a difficult journey, but it was also a doable journey. It's so much more doable than I thought before I started. And really, I was able to just say, I'm just gonna say yes, and kind of trust God in all the next steps. But yeah, I am really glad I said yes, even though, like, so yeah, if you're feeling like, I really love this is really cool, but like fundraising is the only thing keeping me, I just really encourage you to really, lay that down and ask the Lord maybe some of the same questions that I asked the Lord in that time, to be able to see if he might invite you to just take that next yes.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same reaction, and it was almost like a gut reaction. I remember like running home to my husband and opening the apartment door and saying, I just got offered my dream job, except they want me to raise my own money. And I just didn't have a concept of what that meant. I had been on a few short-term mission trips at that point, but I don't know, it just felt very different to raise support for a short-term trip that was 2 weeks than to be asked to raise that for my job, like an indefinite amount of years, 2 years, 3 years. So I had the same reaction, like this almost gut reaction to be afraid of the unknown. Like, I had no idea even why I was afraid. I remember telling my husband, I don't know why, but I have this like mixture of fear and excitement that I just don't know how to release. So a lot of that journey for me looked like releasing and surrendering to the Lord, the excitement and the fears at the same time. Like, learning how to hold those both together was super helpful in me saying yes to this role. And then I look back now and it's like, oh yeah, I had so much help in support raising. Like, that was just something so, felt so big, but has become such a beautiful part of my journey as a staff member with GoCorps.
I think we work from this starting position of, at least for me, it was asking the question, is this even okay? Like, is this even appropriate? Do I have the okay from God, from people, to ask people to give me money? And we start from our starting point is typically these assumptions that we have heard from other people, our own assumptions about money, or what the Bible says about money. And so I don't think that's a bad place to start, but it's a bad place to end, if that makes sense. Like, to ask the question, is this okay, is a good place to start, as long as you are going to the scriptures and then you enter into a place of discovery. Like, what does God say about money? How does God use his church to support and to push forward his mission? And so it's, having that uncomfortable feeling at the beginning, that's not it can be a negative thing, but it doesn't have to be, as long as you take those next steps to actually enter into discovering God's heart for money, for the nations, for how he uses the church and resources. And so it's okay, but yeah, that's pretty normal to start with. What is this feeling? I don't like it.
Well, and I think our reality is that we've grown up in a culture that really values earning your wage and the hard work behind earning a paycheck. And so a response I've heard to that question is it feels like begging. And so I know in my own support raising experiences, it's been normal for me to transpose that on who I'm asking. Like, are they thinking that I'm begging? I'm often speaking to people who are older than me, who were raised in a different time period than I was. And so what are they thinking about me that I'm asking them for money? So I've often heard it feels like begging.